So Marquise, we're the last session, like I said, of a 6-hour day. So we got to really bring this home. But I feel confident in the substance of the conversation we have to dig into here. So before we dive in, Marquise, I want to make sure that the audience knows a little bit more about your background. You are the you lead the marketing and corporate partnership department at Klutch Sports Group, where you identify ways to align brands with athletes through authentic storytelling. And as Casey just mentioned in his introduction to us, before your time at Klutch Sports, you spent several years with Adidas, where you led the global basketball sports marketing department and managed a $100 million budget. You also oversaw the signing of some of the NBA's top players. Prior to Adidas, you were at Under Armour for several years, where your achievements included building their basketball division, growing the company's footprint through sports marketing initiatives, as well as contributing to the brand's increase in value, resulting in the company growing from $600 million to a $4 billion brand. So a proven track record of the power of sports and what we're about to talk about with youth marketing to build those brands. You all, Marquise, just so you guys are aware, also started as a former college basketball player himself and currently sits on the board of directors for the Play Equity Fund, which is a Los Angeles-based organization focused on bringing the transformational power of sports and play for all children, regardless of zip code, to help bridge the achievement gap between Black and white communities. All right, so
sorry to interrupt you, Andrew. Real quick, this is Casey. We would love to see you as well. I'm sure it's awkward for Marquise also to not be able to see his moderator.
All right, 1 second. How do we?
Excellent. Thank you. All right.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so I've just set the table up for you, Marquise, just so everyone's aware of your background. So, walk me through, given the years that you spent on the brand side of the table, what appealed to you about joining the talent side?
I think that like the great thing about being on the brand side, right? You in big companies and global companies like Adidas or Under Armour in my past, like you get to see through the lens of the brand and also understand like budgets and you're constantly trying to find ways to reach the consumer, right? So you get a feel for whether you are on the sports marketing side or brand marketing, PR, like a full 360 lens into things. And really like, then you get to look at the like business of it, especially with those two companies, at how it plays into retail. Cause at the end of the day, it's all about selling shoes and apparel. And so after I've done that for so long, having the opportunity to go on the talent side where you always were having interaction with a lot of different agents or agencies and talent, you get to, I would say I get to have an impact in more industries. So my like sandbox is bigger. Instead of just for one company, one situation, we've got all our different athletes and all different opportunities that may come from several different industries. So not just one lane.
That's right. Well, and to that point, given today's theme of Gen Z, I mean, tell me about how you think about Gen Z as an incubator or a focus group when you're putting a deal together. I mean, there's been a lot of talk today about the importance of authenticity. So maybe that's a good place to start.
I think especially on the sports marketing and brand marketing side, it used to be, 30 years ago, if you just had an athlete and whatever that athlete was selling, people were buying it, right? If you look back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, cologne or a sweater, gloves or whatever. And now I just think that Gen Z they're so in tuned and so smart just because they have so many resources that we didn't have and that wasn't available 20, 30 years ago. And now they literally can pick and see like I think they are the best versions of, because of all of this, they wear and buy and participate in things that like are just organic and true to them. So they want that same thing with brands and also of athletes and talent. And they can they sniff it out right away, right? And it's like, the other thing is they are more into like how it appeals to them than necessarily the whole group. right?
Yeah.
Like they understand that they're part of a group, but you're like, they force you to talk to and meet them in their space.
To that point, have you ever changed the terms of a deal or like extended, renewed it because of the feverish feedback you get from the Gen Z community?
Yeah, because they are extremely important, especially like, on the brand side. In my former life, you look at, you're targeting that 16-year-old kid, right? Whether male, female, both, like, because they have such a presence. And the thing is, if you look, their social platforms and followers and whatnot are like crazy compared to 16, 17 year compared to somebody that may be like 35. Like they just use social in every way. So they're just more tapped in. So you have to, when you look at a strategy, you have to be like, okay, if we are targeting them, what do they like? And really listen. Because if you don't listen, then you're gonna miss the mark. Or if you think it's like, no, we got to go listen and meet them where they're at.
Absolutely. So let's get into the COVID of it all right now. Obviously, this is a very transformational year for sports, how it's played, how it's broadcast, and certainly how your athletes are even safely able to fulfill some of these partnerships that you put together. So yeah, how have the current conditions shifted how your deals are structured, how even a deal that was put together right before lockdown is currently playing out right now?
So we'll go back. I think, when COVID hit and everything kind of was on lockdown, right? I think what you saw immediately was everybody was on pause for a second, right? Like, I remember the last day in the office and we're thinking, all right, well, I'll see you in 3 weeks. Or then it was, this was like second week in March, and you're like, definitely by May, we'll be back. You know what I mean? You just didn't know what was coming. And so everybody paused for a second to like really regroup and figure out and take care of what really matters, right? And that's like your family and your people and health and all of that. And then all of a sudden, what you saw is like brands went two different ways. They adapted and adjusted and said, okay, this is where we're going to be right now. We still need to reach the customer and the client, and we need to do something, and we've got these dollars to do it. And they went forward and we had conversations and adjusted. And then there were some that still got stuck in that, like, we don't know what to do, pause, pause, pause. And I think they're still paused right now, right? And so to that, the brands that decided to continue to activate or double down or even get more aggressive, they said, all right, well, everybody is locked in, right? Like, you have a captive audience because where is everybody? Everybody's on their screen, they're at home, they're whatever. So everything turned to, virtual activations, or taking, let's say if you had an appearance in a deal or something that was going to be after a game or at an event, and people said, all right, well, can we take this to, maybe it was supposed to be 100 people. Can we take it to, like, do a contest and do it to our 15 VIPs or 15 random people by lottery or raffle or whatever it is. And so everything became virtual. And then through social I think that's where we changed and said, okay, well, if you've got in the deal 4 appearances or 3 appearances through the course of the year, let's alternate and see, can we do 6 things on social that it kind of equates to whatever. And everything has been, I think, the best thing about it, and good, why we always talk about like a true partnership instead of an old term of endorsement, is you, as a partnership, you sit down and talk about it and say, this works. Okay, what about this, to come to, to find a solution.
Absolutely. To that point, when you and I were having our prep call the other day, we were talking about a non-sports deal, but certainly something that has a lot of tangents that tie into your world, which is the Travis Scott McDonald's partnership that's happening right now. Obviously, it does pertain to sports in the sense that it's the first time McDonald's has done a celebrity-driven menu item for the first time since Michael Jordan in the 90s. So kind of tell me about why you think that it says a lot about the power of Gen Z, given that it's selling out all these ingredients. It's become this huge hit, especially driven by Gen Z coming to the drive-through. Like, how does that kind of tie back into your world and the world of macro marketing?
Well, I think one, it shows the power of an individual and their brand, right? That comes through Gen Z. Like, they have the ability to create and say and stay authentic, right? Like, I think in different time periods, they would have tried to water Travis down or water down and it was just like, you look at it and you're like, that's who he is. And his fans and all the Gen Z are like, yes, because he is true, we support it, right? And
Right.
You and I talked about, I don't think, was there really anything that changed off of the menu? No, you know what I mean? It's like, it's been that way for a bunch of years, but because you had a different outlook on it, right? It was like a refresh for McDonald's. They looked at it and said, okay, all right, well, we need to connect. And they know that Gen Z demographic is so powerful and so strong. And I think I thought it was really cool to see them lean in like that from a traditionally conservative brand that said, you know what, even them, like we talked about, like you adapt or you die in that. And so, and they're like, hey, we need to reinvent, and that's where we are.
I mean, to contrast that for a second, as recently as 4 years ago at an agency that I was working with at the time, McDonald's came to us for a wrapper that we were working with, and it was a 5-page list of deliverables of 12 social posts and like an Instagram takeover and all these things that we just knew were never going to happen regardless of the check, because It wasn't authentic. It was plugging him into a list of things that had nothing to do with him. And then it was sing this song, this pre-written song. He didn't even get a creative voice in it. So I'm sure with your athletes all the time, you probably still get some of those lists and then pare them back down. So walk me through that process. Like, what's realistic when brands are approaching you as far as knowing how your athletes are thinking about?
Well, I think the first thing is like, I would say, being on that side, a big piece of that is brands got to do their homework, right?
Yeah.
In a sense, and have to know, like, because every athlete is different and has a different perspective and different background. And so how they want their partnerships to go are different. So know who you're going after first. And I think specifically to me, and what we try to do is always say, okay, is this brand aligned with the athlete? And so by that, I mean, like, there are some athletes that choose to be very, very selective of their brand and who they partner with. And then also that they want to keep it at a certain level of like premium, what it means to consumer, what it means public ear, right? So those things have to align. And then after that, it becomes, I think, understand that although it's an athlete, that's a human being, right? So that human being has a voice, has a say, and like, just be considerate of that. And I think the best way I've always had success in approaching these, to get to a deal point in the initial conversation. If somebody is like, here it is, this is the deal, this is how it's gonna be, get back to us tomorrow. It's like, hey, you know what? Let's not even go down that path, because you're not trying to have a partnership. You want to basically, use somebody's likeness for something that you've already decided. And most of our clients, and most in this day and age, that just doesn't fit.
That's right. Going back to your earlier point about, given all the behavioral and categorical shifts that COVID has accelerated, are you seeing new categories of brands or types of companies coming into sports who might not have as much previously? What are some
I think it was just interesting. I think you'll see more companies in like the tech space,
Mm-hmm.
the tech, and then like fitness, where I think fitness and cooking, and that in cooking, I mean, and just like where what COVID has shown us is made us all more human, right? Like when you're on Zooms and when you're talking like this, you see like art in somebody's house. You see their kid real fast. You see their bedroom. You see whatever. You see things like, oh, I use that blender or I use whatever, right? So I think what is done is allowed brands to see like, yeah, we would like to see that person working out. Like we know they're fit and they're an athlete, but what do they do when it's not, if they're a football player or a basketball player, not when they're basketball specifically training or whatever, but we'd like to see them in a yoga class, or we'd like to see them in just in wealth and health, or like in mental health, right? Just in fitness, because that's so much a part of everything else. So I'm seeing a lot of that. And then in the tech space, I just think that you see a lot of tech companies that are saying, well, if they want, like, sports is the biggest platform, especially in the US, when you look at like basketball, especially, or football. If you want to reach so many Gen Zs or just people in general, you look at like, okay, where are industries that are on right now that we can actually, we may not be able to go to the game, but you can see them or watch it. And then how do we connect with those athletes who most of them have been building their social and their brands since they were 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. So there's a natural synergy.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm sure most of the talent you work with, if they're not Gen Z themselves, they're millennial adjacent, so they certainly are of the of the target audience as well. Let's talk about including the previous session right before, as we heard Asia from Fenty talk about the affordability factor, right? Like if you sell something to Gen Z that they think they can either do themselves because they can't afford what you're selling it to them for, or it doesn't have the perceived value, how do you kind of get around that? I mean, obviously, sneaker drops are still a huge thing, exclusive merch. So when do you find that Gen Z will spend on a premium product?
You know what? I think one, as you see especially in the sneaker world, when it's exclusive, right? When they think that it's something that won't necessarily be around in 2 months, or you won't be able to have access to. And Gen Z is extremely smart, and also being able to say, well, if I do purchase something, can I monetize it and sell it later, or keep it, or whatever? They have like, I mean, I've got nephews that are and nieces that are in high school, and the way they swap, sell shoes and apparel and different things is like fascinating. They're all like little entrepreneurs, right? Where I'm like, geez, that's kind of, you got to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
I think that's like part of their thing, but I think Gen Z will spend when they feel it's worthy and appropriate, right? When
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like when they can either tell that like a brand costs more because the brand takes it's organic, or it's good for the environment, or whatever. So then they're like, okay, this, yes, it costs a little more, but this company is helping my life indirectly, right? Like they said. So I think they really, really have tapped into that. Whereas you could have, oh yeah, I can get that for a lot cheaper, but it's bad for me. It's bad for the planet. And so then they're like, nah, I would rather spend more to have a more eco-friendly product. I think that's one thing that we look at. Then also, I think in my former life, I always looked at this like, I think the Gen Z still spends the same amount of money. Like if let's take it to like in apparel or footwear, or just like in wardrobe, right? I think that if they had $200 compared to someone 15 years ago, still about the same amount of money. But the difference is Gen Z is great in saying, you know what? I'm going to spend X on this instead of in the past. Okay, shoes cost $189. I'm going to get those, and it's great. Now they're like, they look at it holistically in an outfit, like, let me go and get these shoes right here at 89.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go to this river and there, and I can get this great T-shirt at X, and then I can go get these shorts or this dress or the sweatshirt, and now I have this whole outfit, and I got that for the same amount that somebody 15 years ago or 10 years ago was just buying the shoes. So I think they are so, like, again, I give them so much credit because they are able to be way more creative just in thought, but also in creative in how they spend their money.
Absolutely. So the volume of product is up, even if the volume dollar wise is flat.
Right. And I think you've seen that even like in certain areas where sneakers and different things have gone, the price of them actually have come lower. Now you may see the craziness if they're like sold out and people are paying on the resale market, but from a true retail standpoint, you see a lot of that. I think that price has come down on certain things to accommodate for Gen Z.
Absolutely. So we've got about 8 minutes left. For those of you still joining us, feel free to drop any questions you may have in the chat while we let the audience submit a couple. One thing I want to touch on is what you said earlier about certainly Gen Z is going to hold brands accountable more than ever for issues like sustainability. Given the events of the last 4 months, how much is social justice coming up on both sides of the table? How is talent holding brands accountable and vice versa?
You know what? I think that's something that didn't just start 4 months ago. It really has a bigger spotlight now, but definitely on both sides, what you have is talent saying, yeah, if you need to show me that you truly believe, right? The good thing is a lot of talent now, a lot of athletes, because they make a great living just on court, they can be much more selective on partnerships and marketing opportunities, right? Because they're saying, you know what, it's not like we all want to make money, but I don't know if I need to take that just if we're not aligned. So when they have that leverage to say, if you truly want me, I need you to show, and not only by what you pay me, but like what is, now it's like, what does that your staff look like? Or if we're going to shoot something, what does your production crew look like? What do they believe in? All of those things they all have to align, walk the walk. Yeah.
Yes, we've certainly talked. We've already seen some of that happen in some of the programming we've done this summer. So are you seeing some measurable progress in terms of leadership boards being more diverse? Having more.
I think so, and I think I think everybody's in this space of like trying to. Most people, most brands, whatever, are trying to do the right thing, and that's just finding the right people to either help them or figuring out what that is specific to their business, and then also, if you've had a company for 60 years or 50 years or 40 years or whatever and done things a certain way, you kind of gotta like look in the mirror, then take care of, internal before you can go out and say, this is what we're doing. So I think you see a lot of quickly, but a lot of brands and companies and organizations trying to do that.
Absolutely. Glad to hear it. So we've talked a lot today about TikTok. Beyond that, what are some other new media platforms that brands should be thinking about to reach Gen Z, especially in your world?
In my world right now, I think everybody's still like TikTok, IG are probably the two biggest, just because that's what everybody is using. I would say that, and then I know there's a bunch that are out there that are, people saying if TikTok goes away or you can't use it, you've got X or whatever. I think those two still are like the main ones. And I think most brands right now are so comfortable with IG, and then you will see it's weird because they need to like make sure a lot of people that are making the decisions of what to do with the brand are still Twitter or Facebook or whatever. So once in a while you get the request, well, can we make sure that they post on one of those platforms or engage in that because our CEO, that's what he's on or whatever, and he just wants to see or engage or whatever. But I think TikTok and IG are the most prominent as of today.
I would agree with that. We Travis McDonald's a little bit earlier. Beyond that, is there another deal on the market right now that you weren't personally involved with, but you think just kind of resonates with how brands should be thinking about how to engage with cultural marketing?
I think that's a good question off the top of my head. There's so many things that are great that are out there right now. Ginger, I saw one today that came across you were in the music industry, so it's like United Artists and United Master and TikTok, their deal that they did, Steve Stout. And like, I saw it today and I'm like, that's interesting because you've got like these musicians and whatnot that are trying to not be traditionally under these contracts and whatnot with traditional labels and whatnot. And then you've got a platform like TikTok. So it's like, that could be, I'm just want to sit back as a fan and say, that's interesting. And want to see how it's going to play out. But I think that's a really cool study or seeing of how like you have these two things that are constantly evolving and trying to like break out of the norm. And then you get these beautiful partnerships that come out of it. And the hope is always that regardless of what, it's better for the talent, the athlete, the creator, right? So I'm a fan.
Yeah. Also wearing my music hat for a second, Versus has been the biggest IG event of the music biz. Do you think there's an application for sports? Like, how have we not cracked the code on that yet?
One, it's kind of, it's music, right? You can sit there and just play and it takes you back to a period and you can, and you send the verses and you can debate on who's better or whatnot. And most of the artists have made it great, right? Because they've been so great in entertaining and what they play and how, and then you get me excited. I think in sport, it's a little harder because it's like, especially if you're done playing, it's kind of like, what are you going to get two former players that haven't played? And do we want to see that? It's different because in music, you can hear and it takes you back. You sometimes with the athletes or the ones that retired, it's like, I want to remember he or she like they were in their prime or the last time I saw them play in a uniform. If I had to get back out there and see them go screen to screen and play horse or something, I don't know if I would like that. But I think there's some cool things that could possibly happen where you look at like, could you put, internet already does it, but if you had like two former players and you put like highlights together, right?
Yeah.
On top of like music, and then have people say what it was like, your best dunk, my best touchdown pass, best home runs, and then like you did it to a music and score, and then you had the two athletes right there. You could do some creative things there.
I think so. All right. I think you've just cracked the code.
Let's get it done.
We'll call Swizz after this and figure it out.
Right.
Marquise, one more quick question before we let you go. We talked a lot about best practices for marketing Gen Z. What's one worst practice? What's one thing brands should avoid when reaching Gen Z?
Thinking they know, coming into the conversation or trying to not listen and just telling. If they're telling and talking, I think you've lost before you even started. Listen and be observant of the marketplace and see what's going on, because Gen Z is telling you every day. They are telling in every way when you wake up and everything that you see, they are telling you and showing you what they like, what they're feeling and what they're not. And if you don't want to pay attention to that, then I don't know what to say.
That's right. Yes. Social listening above all else. Absolutely. Right. Awesome. Marquise, thank you so much. Casey, over to you. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thank you.
Marquise, before we let you go, I know you got Anthony Davis, LeBron James, kind of run into the West Coast Finals, hopefully. So let's assume that they get there. Give me a prediction for the finals.
You know what? Well, we got clients all over the place. So I'm not gonna give you a prediction, but what I will say is this. I think that out of the 4 teams that are left, you have some incredible, I think it's gonna be one of the best finals ever, because one, we needed it and it's back. But I just, every game, like Lou, you saw last night, and every time Denver plays, and Miami is such a great team together, and these guys, and I think it all happened because they're just in the bubble for so long, right? So you don't normally, that's a rare thing that they literally, it's like being at camp for 3.5 months. So I think it's going to be, I did say though, I was a little disappointed that last night that wasn't in Staples Center, because we would have went nuts. That
was nuts.
Yeah, that would have been just, and so, but I'm looking forward to it, and I think it's going to be a great finals regardless.
Yep, right on. Good answer. I agree. I think I'm a big NBA fan, and seeing how well the NBA's handled this restart, it's got to be tough on the players. Like you said, they're in a bubble, so it's just amazing how they're leveraging their voices, and what you said is like, dealing with these players are people too, and like they have their own opinions about brands, and they're consumers in the world also. So it's just really impressive how much great work you guys are able to do. I'd love to pick your brain on more stuff. NBA, I'm a big fan.
Anytime. Give me a call.
Right on. Well, thank you so much, guys. This does wrap up our agenda for the day. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to the inaugural Gen Z Marketing Summit. Special thanks to all of our speakers for the day. Huge. I think we came back to authenticity, so much. So I think my big takeaway is I need to get closer to someone in the Gen Z myself, and be able to pick their brains a little more, and bring them into the conversation. So next up, we're going to be tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern. Please join for our live cast on personalization and digital innovation. We're going to have leaders from PepsiCo, McAfee, Turtle, and more. So thanks again, everyone, for joining, and looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.